Hello friends, welcome aboard the Sleepy Fairy Tale Express. I'm the Red Mermaid. This train is a dream journey to fairy tale land. Have you all got your train tickets? Subscribe and hit the like button to always be able to ride. Close your eyes, prick up your ears, and listen in a comfortable position. Today's story is The Emperor's New Clothes. Once upon a time, there was a stylish king who loved nothing more than wearing new clothes. From a young age, he delighted in dressing in splendid garments, and as time passed, his desire only grew stronger. Every morning, as the sun rose, the king began his day by opening his enormous wardrobe and choosing what to wear from his vast collection. The wardrobe was filled with a variety of clothes, a red velvet robe, a tunic embroidered with golden thread, a silver silk shirt, and more. His wardrobe resembled a treasure chest. He would feel the texture of the fabrics with his fingers and admire himself from different angles in the mirror. "What shall I wear today?" the king mused, satisfied with his appearance. Selecting his clothes was an art form for him, and he chose each piece carefully, like an artist selecting their tools. Each garment held memories and emotions, allowing the king to relish the joy of wearing something new every day. After dressing, his servants would bring him breakfast. Once he finished eating, the king often declared, "This outfit is outdated. I need to change." He would open his wardrobe again. By lunchtime, the king would have changed into a new outfit, spending considerable time in front of the mirror admiring his reflection. Proud of his appearance, he resolved, "I should wear something even more splendid this evening." As the sun set, the king would change into an even more magnificent outfit, aiming to look his best. His sitting room was filled with large mirrors, and he would strike various poses in front of them, admiring himself. Changing clothes several times a day, he continually showcased his stylish appearance. The king paid little attention to theater, walks, or even state affairs. For him, the most important thing was always dressing up in new clothes and looking stylish. He constantly sought, wore, and flaunted new outfits to display his splendid appearance. One day, the king desired even more splendid and beautiful new clothes. "Bring me the most beautiful clothes in the world," he commanded. At his words, his servants set out across the kingdom to find the king's desired garments. However, finding clothes that met the king's high expectations was not an easy task. Every day, the king would inquire, "Have you found it? Where are my new clothes?" His servants, unable to meet his expectations, would lower their heads and reply, "Not yet, Your Majesty. Please wait a little longer." Despite this, the king's desire for new clothes only grew stronger. The king's kingdom was vast and grand, attracting countless visitors from distant lands. Merchants gathered in the bustling markets to showcase their goods, and artists painted and sang in the streets. Amidst this vibrant scene, two deceitful brothers with a special purpose appeared. Though they wore tattered clothes, their eyes sparkled with confidence. The brothers boldly proclaimed to the crowd, "We can create the most beautiful clothes in the world. But these clothes are special. They are invisible to fools and only visible to the wise." Their voices echoed throughout the market, and people listened with curiosity and amazement. Could such clothes really exist? The people murmured among themselves. The news spread quickly, reaching the ears of the king. Intrigued, the king decided to summon the brothers to his palace. He was fascinated by their story. "Is that so? Bring those clothes to me immediately," the king commanded. The brothers obeyed the king's order and made their way to the palace. They walked confidently, unfazed by the grandeur of the palace. Standing before the king, the brothers passionately described the magnificence of their clothes. "Your Majesty, if you wear our clothes, your wisdom will shine across the world," they exclaimed, fueling the king's anticipation. Impressed by their words, the king listened intently, his eyes gleaming with interest. The brothers continued to boast about their abilities. "These clothes are not ordinary. They are woven with special silk and golden thread, and only the wise can see them. Fools cannot see them at all," they declared confidently. The king was completely captivated by their tale. He asked the brothers to make the clothes for him. The brothers replied, "Of course, Your Majesty. However, to create these clothes, we need many resources. We require the finest silk and the shiniest gold thread." The king readily agreed to their demands, and the brothers began their work. The brothers were given a workshop within the palace. They sat in front of an empty loom, pretending to weave diligently. "Look how hard we're working," they would say whenever a courtier passed by, making the loom spin faster. Yet, nothing was on the loom. They merely pretended to weave, acting as though they were crafting real clothes. Several days passed, and the brothers approached the king again. "Your Majesty, the clothes we are making are truly extraordinary. But we need more silk and gold thread," they said. The king immediately provided the required materials. The brothers hid the materials in their bags and returned to the empty loom, continuing their act as if they were weaving genuine clothes. After the king issued his command, the deceitful brothers began their work in the palace. They were led to a beautiful workshop deep within the palace. This room was filled with bright light streaming in from large windows that reached the ceiling, and the walls were adorned with luxurious gold leaf decorations. The floor was made of gleaming marble, and precious artworks were placed throughout the room. The brothers gazed at this grand space with cunning smiles. From their bags, the brothers took out an empty loom and set it up. The loom appeared ordinary, but the brothers handled it as if it were a magical device. One brother assembled the loom while the other secretly hid the silk and gold thread provided by the king in an empty bag. They then commenced their so-called work. The brothers sat in front of the loom, moving their hands diligently as if they were weaving real fabric. They mimicked the actions of handling invisible threads, weaving them into patterns on the loom. The clattering of the loom's wooden parts echoed throughout the palace. Although they were not weaving anything, their performance was incredibly convincing. Courtiers came and went, observing the brothers' work. They were impressed by the brothers' hand movements. "It truly looks like a beautiful fabric is being woven," one courtier murmured. Another agreed, saying, "Look at how skillfully their hands move." The courtiers failed to notice that the loom was empty and were completely taken in by the brothers' deceit. Days passed, and one of the brothers approached the king. "Your Majesty, the clothes we are making are truly special. However, we need more silk and gold thread," he said respectfully. The king, eager to see the magnificent clothes, immediately provided the requested materials. The brothers quickly hid the new supplies in their bags and returned to the loom, continuing their charade of weaving non-existent fabric. From dawn till dusk, the brothers pretended to work at the loom. They acted as though they were weaving invisible threads, creating intricate patterns, and producing fabric. Their hand movements were so precise that it seemed like a beautiful garment was indeed being made, even though nothing was visible. The brothers exchanged subtle signals as they maintained their ruse. One day, one of the brothers started singing loudly while sitting at the loom. "It is a joy to weave these beautiful clothes," he sang, behaving as though he was genuinely making clothes. His voice echoed through the palace, and passing courtiers stopped to listen. They were moved by the brothers' enthusiasm, further convinced that the brothers were crafting something truly remarkable. Another day, one of the brothers approached the king and said, "Your Majesty, this garment is truly extraordinary. When you wear it, you will be regarded as the wisest ruler in the world." The king, hearing this, was filled with even greater anticipation. He eagerly awaited the completion of the work, imagining how splendid he would look in the new clothes. The deceitful brothers continued their work at the loom, the sound of the empty loom clattering filling the palace. Every day, without fail, they entered the workshop and pretended to work diligently as if they were truly creating a magnificent garment. Their hand movements were precise and swift, weaving what seemed like intricate fabric, though nothing was visible. Weeks passed, and the brothers approached the king once more. Bowing their heads, they spoke, "Your Majesty, the clothes we are making are truly astonishing. However, they are not yet complete. We need more silk and gold thread, but this time, the silk must be softer, and the gold thread must be shinier." The king, eager to see the completion of the garment, immediately provided the additional materials. "Take whatever you need," he said. The brothers thanked the king, discreetly hid the silk and gold thread in their bags, and returned to the workshop. The brothers sat at the loom, pretending to work with even more fervor. They moved their hands meticulously, pulling and weaving the invisible threads. Their fingers moved swiftly, and the sound of the loom's wooden parts clashing grew louder, echoing through the palace. Days went by, and the brothers displayed even greater enthusiasm in front of the courtiers. "Look at this beautiful fabric. See how soft and smooth it is, and notice the shimmer of the gold thread," one brother exclaimed, gesturing at the air. The courtiers, eyes wide open, saw nothing but doubted their own eyes, and chose to believe the brothers' words. Another day, the brothers left the workshop door slightly ajar, explaining the fabric to passing courtiers. "This fabric is made from the softest silk in the world, and the gold thread shines as if it reflects sunlight," the brothers said, pointing to the empty air. The courtiers, moved by their passionate description, genuinely believed that a beautiful garment was being made. The brothers continued their charade, often exchanging sly smiles, confident in the success of their scheme. They relished the sight of the king and courtiers being deceived, and used the silk and gold thread provided by the king to enrich themselves. As time passed, the brothers approached the king once more. "Your Majesty, the clothes are now nearly complete. However, we need just a bit more of the softest silk and the shiniest gold thread to finish the garment perfectly," they said respectfully. The king, eager to see the final product, agreed and provided the necessary materials without hesitation. "If this is the last thing you need, take whatever you require," the king said. The brothers once again hid the materials in their bags and returned to the workshop. Now, they pretended to work even more diligently to complete the final stage. Their hand movements at the loom were more intricate, creating the illusion of finishing the garment. The courtiers, observing their passionate effort, anticipated that the king's new clothes would be truly magnificent. As time passed, the palace buzzed with increasing excitement about the new clothes. The king's heart fluttered with anticipation, imagining how beautiful the new clothes would be. From the moment he woke up in the morning until he went to bed at night, thoughts of the new clothes consumed his mind. The king wandered through the palace, discussing the new clothes with his courtiers. "They say the clothes are incredibly beautiful," the king told them. "I'm so curious about how they look." The courtiers nodded in agreement. "Your Majesty, those clothes will undoubtedly be the finest attire for you," they praised in unison. However, the king had one nagging worry. "What if I cannot see the clothes? Would that make me a fool?" he pondered. "The clothes are supposed to be visible only to the wise." Although he tried to reassure himself, the anxiety wouldn't dissipate easily. One day, the king stood before the grand mirror in the palace, gazing at his reflection. "How will everyone see me when I march in these clothes?" he wondered, looking at himself in the mirror. If I cannot see the clothes, does that mean I am a fool? The king questioned himself. Unable to contain his curiosity any longer, the king summoned his most trusted courtier. Go and see how my new clothes are being made, the king commanded. The courtier, respecting the king's order, went to see the deceitful brothers at work. The courtier walked nervously to the room where the brothers were supposedly working. Upon arriving at the workshop, he found the brothers diligently moving the loom, as usual. Look at this beautiful fabric, one of the brothers exclaimed, gesturing to the empty loom. See how soft and smooth it is, and look at the vibrant colors and patterns. The king will surely love it. The courtier widened his eyes, but he saw nothing. Am I a fool? Why can't I see the clothes? He thought, deeply troubled. Fearing being seen as a fool, he pretended to agree with the brothers. Oh, it's truly amazing. I've never seen such beautiful clothes before, the courtier exclaimed outwardly, but inside, he was filled with doubt. The courtier felt burdened by the thought of reporting back to the king about the non-existent clothes. The courtier, troubled by his inability to see the clothes and worried about how to explain this to the king, made his way back to the palace. The courtier returned to the king with a heavy and conflicted heart. Seeing the courtier return, the king's eyes sparkled with anticipation. So, how is it? Are my clothes being made well? The king eagerly inquired. The courtier hesitated for a moment, but then spoke up. Your Majesty, the clothes are truly magnificent. I've never seen such beautiful clothes in my life. The colors and patterns are so exquisite that when you wear them, our kingdom will shine even brighter. The king's heart raced with excitement. He imagined himself wearing the splendid clothes and felt thrilled at the thought. However, a sense of guilt lingered in the courtier's heart. He had seen nothing and was merely praising the imaginary clothes to please the king. In that moment, the courtier felt torn, unsure if he was doing the right thing or making a grave mistake. Despite the courtier's report, a seed of doubt remained in the king's mind. To resolve his uncertainty, the king decided to send another courtier to the deceitful brothers. You must go as well and see how my clothes are coming along, the king ordered. The second courtier arrived at the brothers' workshop. The brothers were still diligently working at the empty loom and repeated the same words to the second courtier. Look at this wonderful fabric. Just imagine how pleased the king will be. But the second courtier saw nothing either. Like the first courtier, he was greatly troubled but didn't want to disappoint the king. So, he agreed with the brothers. These clothes are truly amazing. The king will definitely be pleased. The second courtier returned to the palace and reported to the king. His report echoed the first courtier's praises about the clothes' beauty. Yet, deep down, he felt increasingly uneasy about the lie he had told. The king was delighted by the second courtier's words, but grew more anxious and curious. Despite nearly all his courtiers seeing the clothes, he himself had not seen them, which only fueled his growing unease and curiosity. The courtier returned to the king with a heavy and conflicted heart. Seeing the courtier return, the king's eyes sparkled with anticipation. "So, how is it? Are my clothes being made well?" the king eagerly inquired. The courtier hesitated for a moment, but then spoke up. "Your Majesty, the clothes are truly magnificent. I've never seen such beautiful clothes in my life. The colors and patterns are so exquisite that when you wear them, our kingdom will shine even brighter." The king's heart raced with excitement. He imagined himself wearing the splendid clothes and felt thrilled at the thought. Suppressing his own doubts, the courtier continued, "Your Majesty, the weaving is incredibly delicate, the colors are like a blend of a rainbow, and the patterns embroidered with gold thread are truly intricate. When you wear these clothes, all your subjects will be in awe of your wisdom and majesty." However, guilt lingered in the courtier's heart. He had seen nothing and was merely praising the imaginary clothes to please the king. In that moment, the courtier felt torn, unsure if he was doing the right thing or making a grave mistake. He couldn't bear to disappoint the king, so he pretended to see what wasn't there. The king, hearing the courtier's glowing report, grew even more eager. "Such beautiful clothes! I cannot wait to see the final product," the king said, his excitement palpable. The courtier nodded, but inside, his heart was heavy with unease. Despite the first courtier's reassuring words, a hint of doubt still lingered in the king's mind. To further alleviate his concerns, he decided to send another courtier to the deceitful brothers. "You must go as well and see how my clothes are coming along," the king ordered. The second courtier arrived at the brothers' workshop, his heart pounding with anxiety. Upon reaching the room, he found the brothers still diligently working at the empty loom. "Look at this beautiful fabric," one of the brothers exclaimed, gesturing to the air. "Feel how soft and smooth it is, and see the vibrant colors and patterns. The king will surely love it." The second courtier, like the first, saw nothing. He was deeply troubled but didn't want to disappoint the king. So, he agreed with the brothers. "Oh, it's truly amazing. I've never seen such beautiful clothes before," he exclaimed outwardly, but inside, he was filled with doubt. The courtier felt burdened by the thought of reporting back to the king about the non-existent clothes. The king was delighted by the first courtier's words, but still felt uneasy. He decided to send another courtier to the deceitful brothers. "You two must go and see how my clothes are being made," the king ordered his trusted second courtier. The second courtier, upon receiving the king's command, made his way to the room where the deceitful brothers were working. This room was located at the far end of the palace, brightly lit by large windows through which sunlight streamed in. The room was peaceful and quiet, but the courtier's heart was filled with tension. Upon entering the room, the courtier saw the brothers sitting at the loom, working diligently. As soon as they noticed the courtier, they greeted him with welcoming smiles. "Oh, welcome, sir. Look at this magnificent fabric. The king will be so pleased," they exclaimed. The second courtier slowly approached and looked at where the brothers were gesturing, but he saw nothing. He was deeply troubled but could not risk disappointing the king, so he had to agree with the brothers. "Truly amazing. The king will definitely love it," he said, despite the growing doubt in his heart. The brothers drew closer to the courtier, explaining the details of the fabric. "See how soft and smooth this fabric is? Look at the colors and patterns. The gold thread embroidery is so intricate. When the king wears these clothes, the entire kingdom will be in awe," they said enthusiastically, guiding the courtier's hand to touch the invisible fabric. The second courtier pretended to feel the non-existent fabric as the brothers led him. He knew he saw nothing, but the fear of being thought a fool kept him silent. "Oh, it's so soft and smooth. I've never seen such beautiful fabric," he exclaimed outwardly, while inwardly his unease and confusion grew. Satisfied with the courtier's reaction, the brothers continued their pretense. "When these clothes are finished, the king will be overjoyed," they said. The courtier nodded in agreement, but doubt still lingered in his mind. Having seen enough, the second courtier decided to return to the king. Walking back, he pondered the reliability of his report. "I saw nothing, but I cannot disappoint the king," he thought. In the end, he resolved to give a false report, just like the first courtier. Returning to the palace, the courtier reported to the king, "Your Majesty, the clothes are truly magnificent. I've never seen such beautiful clothes. The colors and patterns are so exquisite that when you wear them, our kingdom will shine even brighter." The king's heart raced with excitement. He imagined himself wearing the splendid clothes and felt thrilled at the thought. However, a sense of guilt lingered in the courtier's heart. He had seen nothing and was merely praising the imaginary clothes to please the king. In that moment, the courtier felt torn, unsure if he was doing the right thing or making a grave mistake. He couldn't bear to disappoint the king, so he pretended to see what wasn't there. The king was delighted by the second courtier's words, but still felt a bit uneasy. Despite nearly all his courtiers seeing the clothes, he himself had not seen them, which only fueled his growing unease and curiosity. Despite the reports from his courtiers, the king's lingering doubts only grew stronger. "How can I be at ease without seeing it with my own eyes?" the king pondered repeatedly. Finally, Unable to contain his curiosity and unease, the king decided to visit the deceitful brother's workshop himself. The king ordered his courtiers to prepare, and along with his guards, he made his way to the brother's workshop. Located in the quietest part of the palace, the workshop awaited the king's visit. As the king arrived, the guards standing by the door opened it and escorted him inside. Upon seeing the king enter, the brothers greeted him respectfully. "Welcome, Your Majesty. You've come to see the clothes we are making," they said with smiles. They continued to work diligently at the loom, as if they were truly weaving a magnificent fabric. Following their lead, the king approached the loom in the center of the workshop. The brothers began to describe the invisible fabric to him. "Your Majesty, look at this soft and smooth fabric. The intricate patterns embroidered with gold thread are truly exquisite. When you wear these clothes, the entire kingdom will be in awe." The king widened his eyes, but he saw nothing. A wave of doubt and anxiety washed over him. "What is this? Am I a fool? Or am I not wise?" The king was deeply troubled, but he could not show his dismay in front of his courtiers and the brothers. The king forced himself to nod in agreement with the brothers' words. Truly remarkable. I've never seen such beautiful clothes," he said. However, there was a slight tremor in his voice. Despite his inner turmoil, he continued to lavish praise on the imaginary clothes. The brothers seemed very pleased with the king's reaction. "We are delighted that Your Majesty likes the clothes. They will be completed soon, so please wait a little longer," they said. The king nodded, listening to their words, and decided not to reveal his doubts any further. As he left the workshop, the king spoke to his courtiers again. "Those clothes are truly beautiful. How will everyone see me when I march in them?" he asked. The courtiers nodded in agreement. "Your Majesty, those clothes will undoubtedly be the finest attire for you," they praised in unison. However, the king's doubts persisted. "If I cannot see the clothes, does that mean I am a fool too?" he questioned himself. It was difficult for him to accept that he saw nothing. Yet, not wanting to appear foolish in front of his courtiers and subjects, the king decided to keep his doubts hidden. As the day of the parade approached, the deceitful brothers began preparing to dress the king in his new clothes. They spent the night at the empty loom, pretending to add the final touches. The workshop remained as quiet as ever, with the sound of the loom and the brothers' whispers filling the space. Their hand movements grew faster and more intricate. Early in the morning, the brothers headed to the palace to dress the king. They carried a large bag and entered the king's chambers, where he was already waiting, his face a mix of anticipation and slight anxiety. The brothers opened the bag in front of the king, making motions as if they were pulling out invisible clothes. "Your Majesty, the clothes are finally finished. They are the most beautiful clothes in the world," the brothers said. The king nodded, standing still as they pretended to dress him. First, the brothers acted as if they were putting on a shirt. "This is the top, Your Majesty. Feel how light it is. It's as if you're wearing nothing at all," one of the brothers said. The king looked at his body but saw nothing. Yet, he hid his doubts and agreed. "Indeed, it feels very light. Extremely comfortable," he said. Next, the brothers pretended to put on trousers. "These are the trousers, Your Majesty. They are very soft and smooth. They will fit your legs perfectly," they explained. The king made motions as if he were putting on the trousers, but still saw nothing. Internally, he was alarmed, but he smiled and followed their lead. "Very soft and smooth indeed," he said. Finally, the brothers pretended to drape a magnificent cloak over the king's shoulders. "This is the cloak, Your Majesty. It will enhance Your Majesty even more," they said. The king pretended to feel the cloak and accepted their help. "Truly beautiful. When I wear these clothes, my subjects will be in awe," he said. The brothers carefully examined the king's body, pretending to make final adjustments. "Your Majesty, you are now perfectly dressed. When you parade in these clothes, all your subjects will marvel at your wisdom and majesty," they said. The king looked into a mirror, but saw nothing. He felt a deep sense of confusion, but said nothing to avoid questioning his own wisdom. Following the brothers' guidance, the king stepped out of the palace. A large crowd had already gathered, eager to see the king's new clothes. The sound of trumpets signaled the start of the parade. The king, knowing he was walking in front of his people completely naked, held his head high and walked proudly, unwilling to let his wisdom be questioned. Finally, the day of the parade dawned. The morning sunlight brightened the palace, but the king's heart remained heavy. "Can these clothes really be seen?" he kept questioning himself. However, all his courtiers had praised the clothes, so he chose to believe their words. From early in the morning, the palace was bustling with activity. Courtiers were running around, making final preparations for the king's parade. In the king's chamber, filled with mirrors, there was a palpable tension. The king, already prepared to wear the clothes, awaited the brothers' arrival. The deceitful brothers entered the king's chamber with the invisible clothes, handling them as if they were the most precious treasure. They laid out the invisible garments in front of the king, acting with extreme care. Watching their meticulous behavior, the king clung to the hope that the clothes might indeed be real. The brothers first pretended to dress the king in an invisible shirt. "This is the top, Your Majesty. Feel how light it is. It's as if you're wearing nothing at all," one of the brothers said. The king, imagining himself wearing the shirt, followed their motions. Yet, he still saw nothing. Next, the brothers pretended to put on trousers. "These are the trousers, Your Majesty. They are very soft and smooth. They will fit your legs perfectly," they explained. The king went through the motions of putting on the trousers, but still saw nothing. Internally, he was alarmed, but he smiled and followed their lead. Finally, the brothers pretended to drape a magnificent cloak over the king's shoulders. "This is the cloak, Your Majesty. It will enhance Your Majesty even more," they said. The king pretended to feel the cloak and accepted their help. "Truly beautiful. When I wear these clothes, my subjects will be in awe," he said. The brothers carefully examined the king's body, pretending to make final adjustments. "Your Majesty, you are now perfectly dressed. When you parade in these clothes, all your subjects will marvel at your wisdom and majesty," they said. The king looked into a mirror, but saw nothing. He felt a deep sense of confusion, but said nothing to avoid questioning his own wisdom. Following the brothers' guidance, the king stepped out of the palace. A large crowd had already gathered, eager to see the king's new clothes. Hearing the cheers of his subjects, the king suppressed his inner doubts and began to walk. He believed he was wearing the invisible clothes and walked proudly in front of his people. As the king passed the long lines of subjects, he felt proud of himself. "Everyone will marvel at these clothes," he reassured himself. However, a part of him still harbored doubt. "Can these clothes really be seen?" the king wondered. Yet, he continued the parade with confidence, hiding his doubts from everyone. The palace doors opened, and the king stepped out among his courtiers and the gathered citizens. The morning sun brightly illuminated the palace square, and countless subjects had assembled to witness the king's parade. Flags and decorations adorned the streets, creating a festive atmosphere. The sound of trumpets heralded the beginning of the parade. The king began the procession with a confident stride. He walked proudly with his chest out, displaying his invisible clothes. His face beamed with a smile, and he waved to the onlookers. The citizens cheered as they watched the king, but to their eyes, it seemed as though the king was wearing nothing at all. Initially, the people hesitated, glancing at each other, unsure of what to say. They had come to see the king's new clothes, but there was nothing visible. "Can these clothes really be seen?" many wondered silently, but no one dared to speak up, remembering that only the wise could see the clothes. As the king walked along the street, he drew closer to the people. They lined both sides of the path, watching the king pass by. Children held their parents' hands, and adults stood respectfully, observing the king. Yet, they all harbored the same question: is the king really wearing new clothes? Encouraged by the cheers, the king grew more confident. He walked more proudly, flaunting his supposed magnificence. His courtiers followed behind, lavishing praise upon him. "Your Majesty, our people are in awe of your new clothes. They are truly magnificent," they said in unison. However, whispers began to circulate among the crowd. "Can you really see the clothes? Am I the fool? Why can't I see anything?" People murmured, observing each other's reactions. Yet, no one had the courage to declare that the king was naked, fearing they would be seen as foolish, as it was said only the wise could see the clothes. The king continued the parade, feeling proud of himself. He believed the invisible clothes were truly beautiful and walked even more confidently before his subjects. Though a hint of doubt lingered in his mind, he chose to ignore it, reassured by the praise of his courtiers and the cheers of his people. Amidst the parade, a small voice suddenly rang out from the crowd. A young child pointed at the king and shouted, "Look! The king is naked!" The child's clear and innocent voice quickly spread through the crowd. At first, the child's words rippled through the crowd like a small wave. People looked at each other in shock and confusion. The child's parents tried to hush him, but it was too late. "The king is naked. Look, he's not wearing anything," another child echoed. The crowd could no longer contain themselves. The murmurs grew louder and more intense. "What's going on? He really isn't wearing anything. Are those clothes truly visible? Or have we all been fooled?" People began to exchange glances and conversations. Initially hesitant and incredulous, they slowly began to speak the truth as they saw it. "Yes, he's not wearing anything. The king is naked." The whispers within the crowd grew louder as people started to acknowledge the truth. They realized that the king had been deceived and that they, too, had fallen for the trick. Faces filled with surprise and embarrassment, some people began to laugh. "What on earth is happening?" People expressed both laughter and anger. The king, observing the reactions of his subjects, was initially confused. He couldn't understand why they were reacting this way. However, as the murmurs and laughter grew louder, he soon realized he had been tricked. "How could I have fallen for such a grand deception?" the king thought, deeply embarrassed. His face flushed red, and his body trembled with shame. Yet, the king did not stop walking. He decided to acknowledge his mistake and continue the parade with dignity. "If I stop now, I'll look even more foolish," he thought, encouraging himself. The king straightened his posture and continued to walk proudly. Despite his internal turmoil and embarrassment, he chose to face the moment with courage. The crowd continued to murmur and laugh. People were impressed by the king's brave demeanor and began to respect his resolve. "Even so, the king is brave. To admit his mistake and keep walking," some said. Listening to the crowd, the king realized that there was much to learn from his mistake. After the child's words spread, the king's face turned bright red. His whole body trembled with embarrassment, but he did not stop walking. He wanted to halt the parade, but he knew he couldn't. All his subjects were watching him, and he had to maintain his dignity as a king. The king tried to ignore the crowd's reactions, but the murmurs and laughter reached his ears clearly. "What is this? The king is really not wearing anything. We've all been fooled." The voices grew louder, and amidst the clamor, the king had no choice but to acknowledge his mistake. As the parade continued, the king began to deeply introspect. He realized how foolish he had been, focusing only on appearances and neglecting true values and wisdom. "How could I have been so foolish? True wisdom comes from within, not from outward appearances," the king asked himself. Seeing the crowd's reactions, the king understood how many people he had deceived and how great his mistake had been in front of them. He felt a profound sense of regret for being so preoccupied with superficiality and neglecting his true role as a ruler. "From now on, I must seek true wisdom and humility," the king resolved. After the parade ended, the king returned to the palace and engaged in deep reflection. He went to his room and stood in front of a mirror, looking at himself. "I have been such a foolish king," he chastised himself. Reflecting on his past mistakes, he vowed to change. "I regret my past vanity. Now I understand that true wisdom comes from the heart," he promised himself. The king decided to acknowledge his mistakes to his subjects and promised genuine change. He summoned his courtiers and shared his resolution. "I have made a grave mistake. From now on, I will be a king who seeks true wisdom and humility," the king announced. The courtiers, surprised by his determination, supported his decision. The king prepared a speech to apologize to his subjects. Gathering them in front of the palace, he began his heartfelt address. "My people, I have made a grave mistake. I have been preoccupied with appearances and forgotten true wisdom. From now on, I will seek true wisdom and humility. I ask for your forgiveness and support," the king said sincerely. The subjects were deeply moved by the king's apology and resolution. They accepted his heartfelt change and began to respect him once again. "Since the king has vowed to change truly, we will trust and follow him," the people said in unison. After acknowledging his mistakes and apologizing to his people, the king resolved to start anew. From that day forward, he reflected on his past and committed to reclaiming his role as a true leader. Standing in front of the mirror, he took a deep breath and vowed, "From now on, I will be a king who seeks true wisdom and humility." To put his new resolution into action, the king first summoned his courtiers. Gathering them in the palace's meeting hall, he announced his new commitment. "I have made a grave mistake. From now on, I will no longer focus on superficial appearances, but will seek true wisdom and humility. I will become a better ruler, learning from my errors," the king declared firmly. The courtiers, surprised by the king's determination, expressed their support for his change. "Your Majesty, we support your new beginning. Let us work together to create a better kingdom," they said in unison. With their backing, the king took his first steps toward a new beginning. The king devised several plans to fulfill his commitment. He decided to reform the kingdom's education system first. "Education is the path to true wisdom," the king stated. He established new schools and invited excellent teachers to provide educational opportunities for all his subjects. "Every citizen should have access to education," he vowed. Additionally, the king aimed to improve his subjects' lives through agricultural innovation. He introduced new farming techniques and provided better tools and resources to farmers. "I will ensure that all my people can enjoy a prosperous life," he said. He personally visited rural areas, conversing with farmers to understand their struggles and working to resolve their issues. The king also recognized the importance of culture and the arts. He invited artists and scholars to revive the nation's cultural and artistic heritage. "Culture and the arts are essential for the spiritual richness of our country," the king said. He supported artists' creative endeavors and organized cultural events for his subjects to enjoy. Moreover, the king focused on economic recovery. He implemented new economic policies to rejuvenate the kingdom's economy and improve his people's quality of life. "A strong economy is the foundation of a prosperous nation," the king said. He supported merchants and entrepreneurs, opening new markets to foster economic growth. The king's efforts soon reached his subjects. They were deeply moved by his sincere change and dedication. "Since the king has vowed to change truly, we will trust and follow him," the people said in unison. They supported the king's new beginning and resolved to work together to create a better kingdom. The king resolved to abandon superficiality and wholeheartedly pursue true wisdom and humility. That morning, he prepared a grand speech to personally convey his commitment to the people. He began his address to the vast crowd gathered in the palace square. As the king stepped onto the platform, his face reflected unwavering determination. "My people," he proclaimed boldly, "I stand before you today to make an important promise. I have been preoccupied with appearances and have forgotten my true role as a ruler. But from now on, things will change." The king paused, meeting the eyes of his subjects one by one. "I will no longer be fixated on outward appearances. I will seek true wisdom and humility. I will strive to improve your lives and make this kingdom stronger and more prosperous." His voice was earnest and resolute. He acknowledged his mistakes and shared the lessons he had learned with his people. "I have made a grave mistake, but I have learned much from it. True wisdom comes from the heart, not from appearances. I will now do everything in my power to regain your trust." The people were deeply moved by the king's speech. They could sense his genuine commitment and desire for change. "Since the king has vowed to change truly, we will trust and follow him," they said in unison. With the support of his people, the king began to implement his plans for change. He first decided to reform the kingdom's education system. "Education is the path to true wisdom," he declared. He established new schools and invited excellent teachers to provide educational opportunities for all his subjects. "Every citizen should have access to education," the king vowed. He also aimed to improve his subjects' lives through agricultural innovation. He introduced new farming techniques and provided better tools and resources to farmers. "I will ensure that all my people can enjoy a prosperous life," he said. He personally visited rural areas, conversing with farmers to understand their struggles and working to resolve their issues. Recognizing the importance of culture and the arts, the king invited artists and scholars to revive the nation's cultural and artistic heritage. "Culture and the arts are essential for the spiritual richness of our country," he said. He supported artists' creative endeavors and organized cultural events for his subjects to enjoy. The king also focused on economic recovery. He implemented new economic policies to rejuvenate the kingdom's economy and improve his people's quality of life. "A strong economy is the foundation of a prosperous nation," he said. He supported merchants and entrepreneurs, opening new markets to foster economic growth. The king's efforts soon reached his subjects. They were deeply moved by his sincere change and dedication. "Since the king has vowed to change truly, we will trust and follow him," the people said in unison. They supported the king's new beginning and resolved to work together to create a better kingdom. Emboldened by the support of his people, the king continued to fulfill his promise of change. Learning from his mistakes, he transformed into a ruler who embodied true wisdom and humility. His efforts and dedication inspired hope and courage in his subjects, leading the kingdom to greater prosperity. After the king acknowledged his mistakes and made a heartfelt speech promising genuine change, the reaction of the people was immediate. The crowd gathered in the square initially listened to the king's speech with expressions of surprise and emotion. As the king openly admitted his faults and vowed to change, the people began to feel a sincere trust in him. As soon as the speech ended, murmurs spread among the people. "The king has truly resolved to change," said an elderly man, tears of emotion welling up in his eyes. "I was disappointed in the king before, but now I feel I can trust him again," a young farmer said to his friend standing next to him. After the king's speech, the square in front of the palace erupted in cheers and applause. People hugged each other, celebrating the king's new beginning. Our king has truly changed. Let us trust and follow him, they said in unison. They accepted the king's sincere apology and determination, regaining their respect for him. The king descended from the platform and walked among his people. They greeted him with warm smiles and words of encouragement. Your Majesty, we believe in you. Please continue to guide us well, a woman said to the king, her voice filled with genuine sincerity. The king was deeply moved by the people's response. With tears in his eyes, he expressed his gratitude to them. Thank you for your trust. I will do my utmost to meet your expectations, he said, his voice earnest and firm. The people responded with even louder applause and cheers. From that day on, the king made continuous efforts to communicate with his people. He visited rural areas, speaking directly with farmers, and walked through markets to listen to the merchants' stories. The king sought to understand the people's difficulties and did his best to help them. It's truly appreciated that you came to visit us personally, Your Majesty, the farmers said to him, their faces beaming with gratitude. The king also implemented significant changes in education, culture, and the economy. He established new schools, supported artists, and promoted economic growth. Education is an investment in the future. I will ensure that everyone has access to education, the king declared. His efforts soon began to show results. The king's endeavors gave the people great hope and courage. They supported his changes and resolved to work together to build a better country. With the king leading us, our country is sure to improve, they said in unison. They embraced the king's genuine transformation and joined in his efforts. Ultimately, the king's sincerity and hard work succeeded in winning back the hearts of his people. They regained their respect for him and resolved to trust and follow his leadership once more. Since the king has truly resolved to change, we will believe in him and follow his lead, the people said in unison. After the king realized the truth and promised to change, the deceitful brothers feared their lies would soon be exposed. Watching the king's genuine transformation, they grew increasingly anxious. We'll be found out soon, one brother whispered. We need to escape quickly. That night, the brothers devised a plan to sneak out of the palace. They gathered all their belongings and decided to escape through a secret passage at the back of the palace, hoping no one would notice. Once we leave this country, no one will be able to find us, they reassured each other as they prepared to flee. Under the cover of darkness, the brothers carefully opened the back door of the palace. They moved silently towards the secret passage, confident their plan would succeed. Quietly, no one must hear us, one brother whispered. Holding their breath, they navigated the passage. However, before they could leave the palace, a guard noticed their suspicious movements. "What are those people doing over there?" The guard, sensing something was amiss, immediately alerted his fellow guards. "It's the deceitful brothers. They're escaping," he shouted. The guards began chasing the brothers. The brothers ran desperately, but the trained palace guards were hot on their heels. "Faster! Hurry!" the brothers urged each other, but the guards quickly caught up with them. "Stop!" one of the guards commanded. The brothers halted and turned around, panting and looking fearfully at the guards. "We were just, one brother stammered, unable to finish his sentence. Their plan had failed. The guards brought the brothers back to the palace and presented them before the king. "Your Majesty, please forgive us," the brothers pleaded with trembling voices. They expressed remorse for their actions and begged for the king's mercy. The king looked at them and sighed deeply. "Your lies have caused much suffering. However, I will give you a chance to repent," the king said. His voice was firm but merciful. The brothers, hearing his words, wept with gratitude. Instead of imprisoning the brothers, the king ordered them to atone for their wrongs through community service. "From now on, you will work for the benefit of the country and reflect on your misdeeds," the king declared. The brothers, deeply moved by the king's mercy, resolved to sincerely repent. After the deceitful brothers were captured and brought before the king, the palace was once again filled with tension. The king decided to hold a special trial to address their crimes. The trial took place in the grand hall of the palace, and word of it spread quickly, drawing a large crowd of citizens eager to witness the proceedings. Everyone was curious about the punishment that awaited the deceitful brothers. With a solemn expression, the king presided over the trial. He had decided to interrogate the brothers himself. They stood before the judge's bench with their heads bowed, their faces showing deep regret and fear. "You deceived many people with your lies and caused great turmoil in the kingdom," the king said in a stern voice. The brothers, trembling, responded in shaky voices. "Your Majesty, we deeply regret our actions. We were driven by a moment of greed and made a terrible mistake. Please, forgive us," one of the brothers pleaded, tears welling in his eyes. The king remained silent for a moment, contemplating their words. "Your lies have brought suffering to many. However, as a merciful ruler, I have decided to give you a chance to repent," he declared. His voice was firm but compassionate. As the trial continued, the king meticulously questioned the brothers about their misdeeds, observing their responses. The brothers answered honestly, admitting to their wrongdoings. "We lied to you and the people. We are truly sorry," they said with bowed heads. Seeing their sincere remorse, the king ordered them to atone for their wrongs through community service. You will now work for the betterment of the kingdom and reflect on your misdeeds. If you disobey my orders, you will face harsher punishment, the king stated sternly. The brothers, deeply moved by the king's mercy, resolved to genuinely repent. Following the king's orders, the brothers began working in rural areas, helping the villagers. They assisted with farming and helped those in need, dedicating themselves to their tasks from early morning until late at night. They sincerely apologized to the people and worked hard to make amends for their actions. Initially, the villagers were wary of the brothers, but gradually they came to accept their genuine transformation. The brothers are truly repentant. Let us forgive them, the villagers said. The brothers, receiving forgiveness from the people, continued to strive to become better individuals. The king, observing the brothers' transformation, believed that they had learned a valuable lesson. Through his mercy and fairness, he realized that he could lead the kingdom toward a better future. I will continue to protect this kingdom alongside my people, the king resolved. Reflecting on his past mistakes, the king felt the urgent need for a trustworthy counsel. He decided to gather advisors who possessed genuine wisdom and insight, and he set about forming a new council. The king first consulted his closest aides. We must form a council of people with true wisdom and insight to avoid making superficial decisions, the king said. His aides supported his decision and began searching for the wisest and most reliable individuals within and beyond the kingdom. The king issued a decree to recommend wise and respected individuals from each region. The ministers traveled across the country to find learned scholars, experienced farmers, honest merchants, and loyal soldiers. We will form a council that can truly aid the king, the ministers pledged. After several weeks of careful selection, the king finally assembled a new council. The council comprised people from diverse backgrounds, whose wisdom and experience spanned all fields of governance. Now, with true wisdom and insight, we will lead the kingdom, the king declared before the council. The council held its first meeting with the king. The meeting room was filled with both tension and anticipation. The king thanked the council members and outlined his plans for the future. Your wisdom and experience will guide our country to a better future. I look forward to your honest advice and counsel, the king said. Each council member began sharing their expertise. Scholars proposed new educational policies, striving to provide every citizen with the opportunity for education. Education is the key to our country's future, the scholars stated. Farmers suggested new agricultural techniques and methods to address food security. We will ensure that all citizens can enjoy a prosperous life, the farmers vowed. They visited rural areas, engaged with farmers, understood their difficulties, and worked to resolve them. Merchants presented various ideas for economic recovery. A strong economy is essential for a prosperous nation, the merchants said. They discussed strategies to stimulate commerce, open new markets, and expand trade. The king listened to their ideas and decided to implement them immediately. Soldiers proposed plans to strengthen the nation's defenses. "We need a strong military to protect our land," the soldiers said. They prepared specific plans to enhance military training and reorganize the defense system. The king, hearing their plans, decided to put them into action at once. After the meeting, the king announced new policies based on the council's wisdom and experience. He conveyed his determination and plans to the people, urging everyone to work together to create a better country. "I will lead this nation in a better direction, together with you all," the king said. The people were deeply moved by the king's renewed resolve and the council's wisdom. "The king and his council will guide our country toward a better future," they said in unison. They supported the king's resolution and committed to working together to build a brighter future. After the formation of the new council, the king worked closely with its members to steer the country in a better direction. The council members provided expert advice in their respective fields, and among them, the wise scholar stood out. This scholar was a nationally respected figure, renowned for his wisdom and insight. With deep academic knowledge and life experience, he joined the council to impart true wisdom and governance methods to the king. One day, the king invited the scholar for a personal conversation. The king sought advice on his ruling methods and the country's problems. "Scholar, I have made many mistakes. I realize that my rule has not brought true happiness to my people. I want to know what I must do to genuinely serve the country," the king said earnestly. The scholar nodded thoughtfully at the king's words. "Your Majesty, true wisdom comes from the heart, not appearances. A ruler must understand the hearts of the people and strive to improve their lives," the scholar said quietly but with firm conviction. The king listened intently, pondering deeply. "Then, what should I do? How can I understand the hearts of the people and improve their lives?" he asked. The scholar began his detailed advice after a brief pause. "First and foremost, communication with the people is essential. Listening to their voices and understanding their needs is crucial. To achieve this, you must directly interact with the people and experience their lives," the scholar explained. The king nodded in agreement. "I will speak more with the people and experience their lives firsthand," he vowed. The scholar continued, "Secondly, education is vital. Through education, people can improve their lives and contribute to the country's development. You must establish schools and invite excellent teachers to ensure everyone has access to education," he advised. The king nodded again. "I understand the importance of education. I will do my utmost to ensure all my people can receive an education," he said. Lastly, the scholar emphasized the importance of the economy and culture. "Your Majesty, a strong economy is crucial for the stability of the people's lives, and culture and the arts are essential for the nation's spiritual richness. You need to implement policies that revive the economy and promote culture and the arts, the scholar suggested. The king took the scholar's advice to heart and strengthened his resolve. I will work tirelessly to develop the economy and culture. I will put all my efforts into ensuring the people lead prosperous and happy lives, the king vowed. Following that day, the king began to implement various policies based on the scholar's advice. He engaged directly with the people, striving to understand their lives. He reformed the education system, establishing schools so that all his people could be educated. To revive the economy, he opened new markets and introduced policies to stimulate trade. To promote culture and the arts, he supported artists and organized various cultural events. The king, deeply reflecting on the scholar's advice, began to devise various policies to improve the lives of his people. He first convened a large meeting at the palace. With the council, ministers, and representatives from each region gathered, the king announced his new policies and vowed to implement them. Everyone, I will now pursue genuine policies for the people. I will do my utmost to ensure that everyone in our country can lead prosperous and happy lives, the king declared firmly. He first emphasized the importance of education. We will build new schools across the nation so that everyone can receive an education. We will invite excellent teachers to ensure that all children receive quality education. Additionally, we will support lifelong learning for adults, the king announced. The council and ministers nodded in agreement. The king personally supervised the construction of new schools and invited scholars to recruit teachers. He emphasized the importance of education, explaining to the people how crucial it was. Education is the key to illuminating the future of our country. I will ensure that all children can receive an education, the king vowed. Next, the king decided to improve the lives of the people through agricultural innovation. He introduced new agricultural techniques and provided farmers with better tools and resources. I will ensure that all people can lead prosperous lives. By introducing new agricultural techniques, we will solve food problems and support farmers in achieving higher yields, the king said. The king visited rural areas to talk with farmers and understand their difficulties. Farmers, I understand your hardships. I will do my best to improve your lives by providing new agricultural techniques and tools, the king promised. The farmers were deeply moved by the king's words and came to trust him. The king also devised various policies for economic recovery. He supported merchants and entrepreneurs, opening new markets to promote economic growth. A strong economy is essential for the prosperity of the country. I will support merchants and entrepreneurs, open new markets, and stimulate trade, the king declared. The